Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 211. Today we are talking building the right mindset for property development. Yes, your mindset is just as important as your level of knowledge, as your level of understanding finance, as the money you have. It is as important as everything. So let's jump on into episode 211, where you're going to learn how you can tweak your mindset so it's great for property development. Hello and welcome to episode 211. Yes, we're talking mindsets. Oh my gosh, it is right up my alley. I love this stuff. But before we do, Bob, thanks for joining.
Always loved it.
Oh, always loved what?
Joining you.
Oh yeah, good. True.
It's good fun doing podcasts.
It is. What's your tip?
Well, after yesterday's effort, for those that don't know, we went fishing. Things were going okay. Decided to pull up the anchor. Now we've got an electric anchor. It's an electric winch. Winds up the anchor. Wound it up okay. Got it the right height. Next thing, bang! Anchor flew off. Whole lot. $300 anchor.
Gone.
Deep six.
Yeah.
So my tip is check your shackles on your anchor more than I do, because I never do.
Who would have thought you have to check your shackle on your anchor?
Well, there you go. That's a $300 lesson.
It was an expensive lesson, but yeah. I suppose, would that fall under due diligence, Bob?
It'd fall under lack of maintenance, maybe.
It probably also leads us to finding the good in that part of it. So adapting our mindset so we didn't go home absolutely furious. But we had been out for a few hours and caught a few fish, so that was still worth it. But yeah, that was a little bit annoying, wasn't it?
No, you've got to be philosophical about that.
Yes, great word too, philosophical. Before we carry on into the podcast, book this week, Jai Fraser. Jai, in the post to you, mate. Look forward to meeting you at our workshop in September. So straight to page 121, learn all about why Bob thinks property development is the best way to go when it comes to making money with property. Anyway, Bob, today we're talking building the right mindset for property development. It's really important, as you know, and you and I both, we talk about it a lot, how we're feeling about stuff, because when I say that, some people are already like, what do you mean how you're feeling? But meaning what's going on with the developments. There's always highs, there's always lows, there's always challenges. We're constantly dealing with stuff. And it does take a mindset check, doesn't it?
Certainly does. And not just for ourselves, but when we're dealing in other people's projects, as we do in the mentoring program, keeping them on track too, as well as ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's just always something going on. There are wins and there are curveballs, constant curveballs. Just last week, got a bad valuation in. What does that mean? Yeah, that means standing back, reassessing the situation. What do we do now? Not going into panic mode. What do we do to make this better? Where did they stuff up? Not us. Where did they, the valuer, which clearly he did. But, how do we move forward with that? Because we're now having to deal with somebody who has an ego. And for those listening, there's nothing worse than dealing with someone who has an ego, when really it's not about the situation. It's just about their need to be right, or, just kind of being polished. So it's just managing all of that stuff. And all of that stuff does impact, building that resilient mindset, which is what we're after when it comes to life, really, but especially in this game.
Oh, especially in property development. I often say, property development, you've got detours, you've got speed bumps, you've got, a section of highway where you go flying down the highway. It's just like that. It's just dealing with it and maintaining that right mental attitude when you're dealing with things.
Even, I suppose that's what I'm incredibly lucky that, we get to work in this business together, but we're always talking development in some way. And so the mindset that you need to have, a resilient and solution finding and positive, not Pollyanna positive, but realistic mindset. Another example was today when we've been looking at doing a childcare with some residential housing around it or nearby, and how that has to be purchased and what that might look like and what investors will receive. But straight away, it came back with, no, it doesn't work when we did it. And then, we've run numbers and looked at different scenarios and tried to come up with different solutions. And now we've found a way that it does work. But having you stand at my desk and say, well, this is how this can work because we can do this. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Right. And And it's just having, I suppose, with somebody like yourself, having so much experience, I get to hear so many different solutions that maybe you listening, the person listening today, you the listener, hello, whoever you are, maybe you don't get that opportunity so often. And so having people to help you with a mindset to keep you staying positive and focused and just on track really, and understanding that you're not on your own and there's so much to it. It can be challenging. So, Bob, can you remember a time? And I've sort of come through some examples. Do you remember a time when? And I sort of remember the time, and that's why I brought it up with you. What was it like when you got that first big role in the development company where they came and asked you to do it? You were incredibly young. There were people that were way more qualified for you, but they saw you and wanted you to do it because you had the the push, the drive, what was the word? I suppose the tenacity, because you've been doing some work for them and found some loopholes and helped them out. What was it like when you took over that role? Did you deal with imposter syndrome? Did you deal with feeling like you weren't good enough for the role? Which I know a lot of people, even if you're considering property development now, that could be your struggle. You think you can't, you're not good enough. Did you have that?
Well, to a degree I did. I actually chased a job in that company. It was the biggest property development company in Australia at the time. And I wanted to get experience in a big development company doing big projects. I'd done my own projects, but nothing of that scale. So I approached them, and the head guy took me on and said, look, you could be a consultant for us for a little while, and if we find a good project, then you can come on board. As it turned out, a very senior individual resigned from that company, and I got offered the job. It never went to the market. And I was young and, full of a testosterone or whatever you are at that early age. I was probably about 30. But those sort of roles, those very senior state level roles in major development companies normally go to people, particularly back in those days, with a lot of seniority. And I grabbed it, of course. It was levels above what I was expecting to go. I was happy to come in at a lower level. I expected to. And it was daunting at first, particularly when I arrived, and there was two other people in that company on the same level of seniority as me. And one was, I think, about 53 years old. The other one was similar to that. And it had taken them that long to get to that level. And I'd come in totally from the outside, no corporate experience as such, and to take on that role. So it was after I got the role that I started to think, oh my God, am I up to this? Can I do this? It's the first time my confidence had ever sort of started to, I'm in the big league here.
Can I just interrupt? What made you have those thoughts? Was there an incident, or you? Yeah, what?
I just realised how big everything was. So the biggest development company, they were doing big projects. I basically took over someone that had left. And the biggest one of those projects was a 67-story building in the CBD. And, I had basically a 2IC role in that. And just the enormity of it all, it hit me. And also the fact that I was not much more than half the age of people at that level, I wouldn't say it was imposter syndrome, but I was just totally overawed. But the good thing is that the really senior guy that actually offered me the job in the first place took on the role as a mentor, and he said, "I realise you haven't, worked in this, in particularly in the corporate world." He said, "I'll hold your hand, but he said there's things that you have that these other guys don't have," and that was more to do with my sort of entrepreneurship. Really have a go. They tend to, stick by the rule book. There's things about it that he liked about me that isn't corporate, but he also knew I had to be, corporate. So that helped me. That got me over that feeling of, wow,
yeah.
Stars.
So was it just that one person having that conversation with you gave you that feeling of you were just questioning your own ability, which when we do that, we're telling anything you do on the inside, those conversations you have are affecting your mindset. You've got to realize that they are like someone on the outside talking to you, because the first person you hear is you. So at the conversation you were having with yourself, whether you thought it or not, the fact that you doubted your ability a little bit meant that you had been telling yourself a story that I'm probably not good enough. And then all you needed was that one guy to come in and say, hey, I brought you on because of this. Yeah, that is the role of a great mentor.
Yeah, it is, yeah. What about yourself? You had an experience like that?
I've had hundreds of them, Bob.
Pick one.
Pick one. Well, if I picked one around property, I remember going to my first auction, and we're staying on property, so I'll stay on property mental challenges. And I had a girlfriend who was a real estate agent, and she had said to me for so long, Hilsey, she was a Hilsey. I've got a Hill. Oh no, she was Hillers. I've got a Hillers, and I've got a Hill, and I've got Hill. I've got so many nicknames. She was like, Hillers, you need to be selling real estate. You need to come work for me. She was so desperate for me to be a real estate agent, but I was like, no, I'm not going to be a real estate agent. At the time, it wasn't a me thing. It never really has been. Although I do wonder where I may have gone.
You would have been really good at it.
I think I would have been, because I love it. And I genuinely like helping people. That's my thing. So if you can put somebody into a property that makes them happy. But anyway, we're off track. So she said to me, Hillers, if you're going to the auction, and I've told so many mentoring students this, you have to go, because I said, how do I even bid at the auction? And she said, because I had actually bidded once before, believe it or not, I'm very young, and I bidded over the phone. So I hadn't been to a live auction. And so another agent was there bidding for me, and I got the house by bidding over the phone. And I was a single mum buying houses and doing flipping them, doing renos and moving on. Anyways, so I said, what do I even do at an auction? She goes, I'll give you a tip. So here's a great tip at an auction. And we pretty much used this when we bought at Oceanic up the road when we did the duplex. She said, walk in with absolute confidence, go to the front of the room and sit down. And when you start bidding, she said, just bid loud and strong and bid fast. She said, the minute you do that, it actually scares other people off and they stop bidding. So people are like, yeah. You go, yep. And people are like, oh, shivers. She means business. And they will stop bidding. And they did. And that was such a big confidence boost for me, realizing that telling myself that I could do it, telling myself that little old me, just a little single mum, she could just go there by herself and just act really confident and bid really loudly and get the deal. But that was a big movement forward when I probably had a big realization that confidence it's a winning game. It has a lot to do with mindset. You walk into a room, shoulders down, looking down, feeling down, you are down. You walk in with confidence. So everything you do, if you do it with confidence, you're telling yourself on the inside that you are capable of something, that you can do this. I think it's a really big tip for just mindset in general. You look down, you are down. You look up, stand tall, shoulders back, and do everything with confidence. Doesn't mean you need to be the loudest in the room. It does it at auction, but it just means however you present yourself, you do it professionally. You do it to the best of your ability, and it's a little bit of fake it till you make it, really, I suppose. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, interesting. How old were you at that time?
That one there, my first one, I probably was about 24. I probably would have been about 28, maybe.
Because you bought your first property at 18.
Yeah. First property at 18.
Interesting.
Bob, let's talk now about why mindset does matter when it comes to property development. And let's sort of, without giving out names, just talk about a few students and how we notice people that have a great mindset, how they move forward, how, when they're dealing with setbacks, when they're putting offers in and they're not getting it because they're doing their numbers correctly, so they know how far they can go, when they're doing everything right. What do you see as the thing that keeps people on track?
I think have a plan and stick to it. So when we're doing property development, the beautiful thing about it is there is a plan, there's a process, and expect good things to happen. And you'll have your speed bumps, but stick to your plan. And when I say stick to your plan, you have to be a little bit flexible with property development. as well. Sometimes you just got to take an alternative route, only temporarily. That's why I call it a detour, I guess. When I'm talking about speed bumps are just a thing you get over. Speed bump, we didn't get a great valuation the other day. To me, that's a speed bump, but we know what to do about it. We realised that the valuer didn't use all the numbers. We've got more numbers, more examples, and that's what we're doing at the moment. We're going back, and so the valuation was a draft, so they're open for discussion. But that's a speed bump. But back to your question, I guess, is with students is stick to the process.
Yeah, I see, the reason, and I think that's great. You've got to stick to, there is a process and just keep doing it and doing it. But be, like you say, be ready for the detour. Got a fabulous email this morning, which I haven't replied to yet, from Reese. And he said, "Oh my guys, just need to thank you guys so much." He's in the mentoring program. Goes, "Got a site on the weekend." But it's actually, it's going to be a full reno site. It's not going to be a development, but he's done them in the past as a builder. That's what he does for other people. And now that he's learned to do numbers because he joined the mentoring program, and if this might sound like a lot of mentoring chat, but it does make a difference for mindset for sure. He's learned how to do it for himself. So he's really grateful, and even though it's kind of off track, it's still on track because he's still working within property and he still can do property development, and he's going to make more money and he'll be able to move forward. And I think him, having, like, we've got the detour with that valuation right now, him seeing this is a fabulous opportunity, using the knowledge he's got that's added to what he already has, he's going to be able to move forward. But another one I see is, and I say his name, hi Kyle, again, he'll text me. He goes, "I love hearing my name on the podcast." There's two Kyles. Hello to both of you. And he sent me a text on the weekend. "I'm going letterbox dropping this weekend." And I was like, "Yeah, go you." But it's also just having that positivity around. He put a couple of offers in, it hasn't worked, but instead of sitting at home and thinking, "Oh, my life sucks and I can't find a site right now," he's like, "Okay, what can I do next? What can I do?" And my reply back to Kyle was, "Well done, mate. You're making yourself more lucky." Because that's how you make yourself lucky. And if you're doing something that's giving you the momentum to move forward, then it's all just positive rather than giving up on things. You agree?
Yeah, totally.
What about, how do you see negative, and people do get down. How have you ever had, oh, I know you have actually, unpack a bit of a negative mindset where you've really struggled, Bob, and you've had to sort of think, okay, I need to switch this out?
Oh, well, in a big example would have been a project, retirement village, where we got knocked back on the approval and had to make a decision first of all whether to go to court or not. And then when we did, it just went on and on. The projected budget to take the matter to court on appeal was 150 to 200,000, and we tossed it around. We thought we had a good chance of winning, and so I went ahead. And $1 million later, I still didn't. It still hadn't been approved, but was close. So that took over a year, and that really tests you mentally. Basically, what's that? $25,000 a week on average. For more than a year. Imagine writing out a check. Not that anyone writes checks out anymore, but writing out a check for $25,000 every Friday afternoon, and that's basically what I was doing. And I had to really fight to keep the right mental attitude.
Fight the demons.
Yeah, and they like to come at you about 2:00 in the morning.
Oh yeah,
that's what I found.
I remember those. You'll be up walking around the house at 2 a.m.
Yeah, with no guarantee of winning.
Yeah,
and $100 in the red. So that tests you.
$1 million in the red.
What did I say?
$100.
$100, make it $1 million.
Yeah, $1 million in the red. I suppose there's that difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, and that's the work of Carol Dweck, which means if you see that as the only, this isn't going to happen, or this isn't going to happen yet, and that's the difference between a growth mindset and a non-growth mindset. So if you're the sort of person who just thinks, "I can't do that," or do you say, "I can't do that yet"? If you're the person that adds "yet," that means you do have a growth mindset. And it's much better for us to have a growth mindset than it is to have a fixed mindset, because a fixed mindset will get you stuck in a place, and you don't want to be stuck anywhere. You need to be able to see a light, see a way out. And you could see the way out. It was just a blimmin' horrible journey you had to unfortunately take.
Yeah, not much I could do about that other than live through it. But you talked about resilience. If I didn't have it before, I certainly built a lot of things during that 12, 15 months.
Definitely. Bob, let's talk about common mental barriers. Really, there's the fear of failure, there's analysis paralysis, the imposter syndrome that we covered before, and that I need to know everything trap. And I think if you're listening to this podcast, you're listening today, and you're thinking about doing property development, and you're thinking, I'll just ring everyone and check prices and check this and check that. If you keep questioning, you just need to make a decision. And I spoke to somebody last week, and he said to me, Hilary, I just need to pull out my finger and pull the trigger. And I'm like, well, you actually put a swear word in there. And I repeated it back, and I was like, mate, well, then pull your finger out and pull the blooming trigger. That was when it came to buying a site. But that, or even taking action and working toward looking for one. But when it comes to people thinking about it, stop thinking about it, stop questioning. I talk to people, I've just got to think a bit longer, I just want to ring up every man and their dog who started a blooming education company a week, 2 years, 5 years ago, whatever. Like, just make a decision, because if you keep giving yourself excuses, if you're thinking you're not good enough, if you keep thinking that you might fail, if you keep thinking that it's got to be perfect, if you keep thinking you've got all your ducks in a row, you will realize that 10 years is going to pass and you will do nothing.
Well, we meet people like that from time to time, unfortunately, don't we? Meet at workshops and places like that, even on the telephone. I can remember getting a call a little while ago from somebody who did the course 5 years ago, thought about doing the mentoring program, didn't, and 5 years later still hadn't done anything, but regretful. Because conservatively in that 5 years, they could have probably made $1 million easily, conservatively. And so 5 years on, still in a job they don't like, still haven't taken that step that you need to take.
Pull the finger out and pull the trigger.
Yeah, but we meet people like that, and from time to time, and they're full of regret. But
what do you do?
Well, do it now.
Yeah. So the reason they're not doing it is the analysis paralysis. So everything's got to be absolutely perfect.
It never will be.
No. The ducks line up after you take action. I'm just doing a fabulous speech on that right now, so I'm a bit hot on ducks lining up in a row, because they don't. You can't line your ducks up. You have to make a decision. You have to start acting, and all of a sudden, oh, look, there go my ducks. They're all starting to line up. People like their ducks to be lined up, color-coded, and basically marching in formation, and that doesn't happen. You make a decision, you go yes, and there is a whole lot of information, neuroscience around cognitive biases, and once we make the decision, what happens, and you'll make your decision right. So no matter what you do, your decision will be right. So just make the decision and do it, because the minute you make that decision, I'm doing a lot of research on this right now, then your brain will do everything in its power to make sure that it's right. And there's a whole lot of justifications that go on. And so basically just go ahead and do it. The fear of failure, well, that's a habit in some cases. It's easier to think I can't do it, so I won't do it. It's easier to stay stuck in a situation than it is to get uncomfortable and do something about it. And even that word uncomfortable, if we say, you might be in a job you hate, that makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. You have a future you don't like the look of financially, that makes you a bit uncomfortable. There are a lot of things in your world that make you uncomfortable, but you're prepared to stay there because it's more comfortable to stay uncomfortable than it is to step out and do something about it. So that's one reason for people to get into property development. And the other one is they're just passionate about it and they think about it too long, and that's when they want everything to be perfect. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know how to get started. And to get started, you just need to decide that you're going to do it, and then get yourself a great course and start doing property development. It's that flippin' easy. Did I miss anything there, or that was my wee little...
No, it wasn't a rant. No. There's a lot of good stuff in that. But people getting stuck, paralysis by analysis. We see all of those things from time to time with people, and some people that we can see that early and get them around that.
Yes.
I'm thinking of somebody who joined our mentoring program. We did have a good talk to them at the time they joined, and we know that they're very micro, so they want to get every little detail sorted out up front, and it just doesn't work like that. You can't. It's like I think you used to have a story when you leave home, and you've got a destination and you just start driving. Now, there might be some roadwork somewhere and you've got to go a little bit of a detour. There's stop signs. There's, plenty of stuff happening along the way, but you know what the other end is. And but until you actually hop in the car, turn the key on and start, you can't predict, every bit of roadwork, every stop sign, everything that's going to happen on the way. But you do need to start. You can't start driving.
And there is that fear of failure, but that's why we have education. That's why we have decent education, not just an easy thrown together course, but with years of experience, because it's about mitigating that risk. And then, like the bad valuation we got last week, we all go, "Oh no, jeebus!" But that's going to happen, and there is okay. So the next step from here is we do this. In some cases, I kind of like things like that happening. I know you're probably like, "What?" But when that happens, I just see it as another learning opportunity for me. It's like, okay, so what does that mean? I know we've had it happen a few times. What does that mean we do now? What is the next thing we do? And you learn so many different ways of realizing that it's never going to be perfect.
And there's 3 solutions to deal with that. And we're taking the first one, which we prefer. And then if that doesn't work, there's a second solution. Then there's a third solution. So that, that's no reason to be fearful.
Yeah. And then there's always that I need to know everything before I get started. And interestingly, we did that what do you call it? A poll on our live Q&As that we have every second week. And I asked people who had the online course, do they go through the whole thing and then rewatch it, or do they just go through and do the first third, which covers finance, DD, and feasibilities, finding a site, that's the initial stuff, or do they do the whole thing? And it was half and half.
Yeah.
Half of the people went through the whole lot, and half of them said no, they just do up to where they needed to, and then they started looking for a site because they didn't need to know the rest of it yet. And that's okay. That's your way of learning. And it gets you started, because 80% done is better than 100% not started. And when you think, I've got to go and spend an hour looking at something or learning something or doing something, if an hour's too big for you, you're never going to do it. So it's about just taking actions that are easy for you and, bite-sized chunks. You only eat an elephant one bite at a time. You don't take the whole elephant in your mouth and try and chew it up. It's just too difficult.
Yeah, that's a lovely old saying. Yes. Poor elephant, though. I feel sad for the elephant.
Oh, yeah, it's not good.
And who wants to eat an elephant anyway?
And there's also plenty of people around. You can always ask for help, and like there's mentoring programs like we have. So, Bob, I want to talk about now practical strategies that we use for building a resilient mindset. What was your best one for your 2 a.m. walking around the house moments? How did you find your solution for that?
Well, it was, I wouldn't say it was without fear, because what I didn't want to happen was obviously get to the other end, spend all that money, and then get knocked back, have the appeal knocked back. So what I had to do is make sure that every little step along the way was maximised, that I was doing the very best. And really, it's just a lot of steps. If you look at the whole thing, it's scary. The outcome, if it went bad, is scary. But I just thought, you know what? If we do everything right, and we started with confidence, I had to maintain that level of confidence that we were going to work through it. We were going to end up getting an approval, and just make every little step along the way a little win, a little minor win. We need to get a report. We need to get an acoustic report. They're saying, oh, it's going to be too noisy. We're saying it's not. Get best acoustic engineer to get the right report. That's just one little thing, but always, every time, just doing all the little things right, and just try and get little wins along the way rather than just concentrate on the big win or the big loss.
So yours was a zoom out, zoom in mentality. So the overall desire is the zoom out. That's like, see the big picture. We need to win this. But what you did was zoom in and just dealt with everything one at a time to the best of your ability, and got what you needed and made it all happen. And that's that's probably realistic, and it comes under just setting realistic goals. And you mentioned celebrating the wins every time. So every time, your barrister beat their, I'm going to say nupty, beat their nupty, which was every time, even though you had to go through the whole thing, it was just like, yay, another one. That's another thing, ticked off. And even though it was a bit pedantic. So what are other things that you see as practical strategies for people to keep with that positive mindset?
Well, I think it comes from confidence that you know what you're doing. I can't imagine people just sort of launching off and trying to, the old trial and error, fly by the seat of your pants, learn it as you go sort of thing.
Well, they do, Bob.
But they do. Some do. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I see them.
Yeah, because it's cheaper that way.
We get calls from them.
Yeah. Lol. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, well, I think you need to be confident. If you're not, you can't really make the right decisions. I think, so the question is, where's the confidence come from? Well, the confidence comes from learning and understanding what it is
Competence.
you have to do, competence, and getting the right help. That's another big thing. Don't just rely 100% on yourself. And if you do that, and I keep saying about follow the process, but yeah, it'll get you there. And there will be as I keep saying, the speed bumps and the detours, because we deal with that every day. Solution orientated, which we have to be. But if you don't have the knowledge, you can't solve the issue. So
or see the
that's
issue
the fundamental.
coming.
Yeah. Or see it coming and avoid it.
I always find as well, and when I have a chat with somebody about the programs, I always say we aren't a get rich quick scheme. We're not. So if you want to get rich quick, you're in the wrong place. I'm very realistic about the journey somebody has. That's why every conversation starts with, what have you got to get started with? Not how much money do you own or have, or what are you worth? I don't care about that, but how much you're willing to put into your first deal, and if it's something or if it's nothing, or how much and who's around you, what that actually looks like. Because every person has a different journey, and they're going to have ups and downs. They're going to be disappointed so many times. Like poor Kyle, he's so up, down, up, down, up. No, man, I got one. Oh, I didn't get it. Oh, I got one. I didn't get it. There's so many of those. He's going to get the best deal ever. But it's just remaining positive with that knowledge that there's hundreds of deals, and if you're doing it right, and you don't just take one with emotion because, damn it, I'm going to pay that much anyway, because it has to work, it has to stack up. You've got a valuer that has to assess it. You've got to get finance, all of that stuff that happens. It's just being realistic and thinking, oh, my time is coming, and you've got to be just so not Pollyanna positive, but have a realistic idea that it's luck. It's and you make yourself more lucky the more you look, and you make yourself more lucky the smarter you are at doing feasibilities. You make yourself more lucky when you know more. That probably does sort of sum it up, doesn't it? Really, which means the more effort you put in, it's like everything, effort equals reward, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to throw it back to you because this is your area of expertise. Can you give us a couple of practical tools that people could use to keep that right mindset for property development?
I'm a practical tooler. So funny. I spoke to a mentoring couple last week, and they said, Hilary, how do you maintain a positive mindset? And it was kind of weird because most people don't ask me that. And I said, well, I'm really not woo-woo, right? I'm not that woo-woo. But I said, I do have a couple of practices that I use. And then I said, so, are you guys a little bit woo-woo? And then they go, yeah, we are. So I said a couple of things that I do, and they're like, oh, you are so woo-woo. That was Brett and Vanessa. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I am more woo-woo than I think. But I'm definitely about visualizing the outcome that I want, like seeing it. Morning routines are
speaking it as well.
I don't necessarily have to speak it. I just see it in a movie format, shut my eyes and see it for maybe 3 or 4 minutes a day on a regular basis, because when you do that, your brain looks for answers, and it's just showing you what's possible. It's showing you what you want. It's a reminder of what you do want. So that's one thing. I love I do like writing down in the morning 3 things I'm grateful for, the things I do well, what I'd like to do better. I've recently got back into list writing. I've got to be a bit careful with list writing because my daughter would say I'm ADHD, but I do kind of get obsessed with lists, and then I'll just write endless lists because I love crossing things off my list, and I get so what's the word? Like I get so caught up in achieving so much. So, but I definitely believe that hanging out with the right people and talking about what your property development stuff is good. I believe that visualizing what you want is really useful. I believe that just taking 3 actions every day, no matter how big they are, it might mean I need to talk to Hilary today. And if that's too scary, or I need to put an offer in, if that's too scary, whatever it is, then I'll just write the phone number down, and that counts as an action because you're still moving forward, and action creates traction. Because it is just important that we just maintain what's going on inside our head. You heard me talk before when I said to you about the conversation you were having, and that's the first one you hear. What you tell yourself becomes your reality. And that's so important. When you hear yourself berate yourself, when you think negative thoughts, you are telling yourself a story. That is the same as somebody else telling you that. So people don't realize when they think like that, it's basically the same as somebody else saying it to them, and they believe it. You think it over and over, you're going to start believing what you think. So you've got to decide what it is that you're going to believe. If you believe, I have so many beliefs that I go, I just know that's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen. And how often do I say to you, I just know it's going to happen, because I just know something's going to happen, and it will, because you're doing everything right, and I've got everything in place in my head to make it right. So that's probably something that I would say for everyone. Write down what it is that you want. Think about what it is that you want. Have a great morning routine. Do the same thing every morning. And it all ties in with, stay healthy and eat well and get enough sleep. There's a whole picture that comes with all of that. And it also comes with, drinking a lot of wine when you need to,
And not when you don't need to.
yeah, and not when you don't need to. Exactly. I know that was a long answer. I just think it's more than one thing. Be careful what you tell yourself. Think about what it is that you want, and just decide that it's possible. Yeah, because I think the other thing, which is a great one-liner, and I'm just creating a new keynote actually, and this is going in it, it's because, and this is the one-liner I love, we think stuck is safer than scared. So we choose to say stuck. So we think stuck is safer than scared. But stuck is really scared in slow motion. So if you are thinking about property development, but you keep putting it off or finding reasons because it's the wrong time of day, and there's always going to be something in the way. There's always going to be hurdles that pop up, that obstacles. You need to see them as on the way and not in the way. Stop procrastinating. Stop putting things off, because you're doing it with property development. You're probably doing it with your health. You're probably doing it with an area of one or all or some of your relationships. You're doing it with many areas of your life. And if you stand back and look at the whole thing, a lot of it comes down to decision making. Just make a decision and decide to see that this is possible for you, and just blimmin' well go do it.
I like that.
I love it. It's so a me thing. I don't know. Do you feel like we've put enough depth into this? Are people getting what they need to do? Like, what is with the people that come into our programs, especially into the mentoring program, because they're the people we see, we have the most to do with. If they buy the bundle, we see them on the live Q&As, which is awesome, and they're every fortnight. But we see them at the workshop, which is in September. If you're interested in coming along this year, 19th, 20th, and 21st on the Gold Coast. What do you see, Bob, as the main traits, the people that have a great mindset in the property development space?
Well, I think they have a good mindset outside of the property development space as well. So their attitude to life generally is positive, but not woo-woo positive. They have an expectation that they will do well, and they're prepared to invest in themselves to get to where they want to get. And that's fairly typical of the people that we end up doing business with, that we help, work closely with. And that if they're not resilient, I'm sure you'll help them to become resilient. And so, yeah, look, it's just that it's a combination. But I think people that have been successful outside of property development, when they carry those same traits in, will be successful. But then there's always people who need to sharpen up. And I think we've covered a lot of things, a lot of good tools that you just covered then as well. I think we'll get people over the hump for sure.
And you start doing property development, and you aren't a property developer on day one. And I remember now I write property developer. When I go through customers, it's what's your occupation? I do write property developer, but I didn't. I wrote business coach for years and years, and then all of a sudden I thought probably more of a property developer now, and I started writing that, and that is now my normal. So you grow into it with the process, and that's part of it. Just believing that this is for you and that you can do it. So Bob. What's your key takeaway? What's the big thing that you think? What's your everything we've talked about? What would your main tip when it comes to building that great mindset for property development?
Well, know why you want to do it. Don't procrastinate. Just make the decision, like you said. Don't wait for all the little ducks to line up in a nice straight line. When you take that action, things will start to fall into place, and that's it. It's that first action, and the rest will happen. Don't try and line up everything. Like I said, with the trip, leaving home, going to destination, you can't control every stop sign, every little bit of roadworks, but get a start. And I know that's your big thing, and that's the way it is. It's just what it is. That's what you got to do.
And to decide it's going to be perfect or it's going to be great and you're going to grow into the person you want to. And now is the best time, because remember, the decision you make, your brain will make it right. So if you decide, it's not for me, I'm not going to do it, your brain will show you how you were exactly right that time. So yeah, I agree. You can definitely do this. So what I'm going to say is, if you're interested in joining our mentoring program, or at least having a chat with me about that after this podcast, you're welcome to do that. That might be something that inspires you. So there'll be a link below. And of course, we do work with limited numbers. So there's a bit of an application behind that. But if you're serious about it, that's definitely for you. Otherwise, we've got our free lunchtime session next Tuesday. It was changed. It was going to be this week, but it's next week. So there'll be a link below if you want to register for that. And then we've got our Saturday masterclass coming up in August. There'll be more information about that. So whatever it is, we've got plenty out there to keep you educated and excited. But it is important to have a great mindset in life about everything. And if you feel like yours needs a bit of sharpening, well, then it's time to put a bit of positivity into your head. So whether it's listening to podcasts like this, or whether it's, I've got my own Bounce Back Better podcast with Hilary, if you wanted to listen to that, that's really all around mindset and strategies around that. Or there'll be a link below in the show notes for that as well. And also, maybe just reading really great books, anything you can do to fill your head with positive stuff so you actually believe that the life that you want, be that in property development or in any other area of your life, is possible for you. So I hope you've got something out of this week's podcast. We'll look forward to chatting with you next week. Bye for now.
Bye now.